Picture a battlefield laid with white linen. Now set it with silver. 3 forks to the left of every plate, 3 knives and a soup spoon to the right, more waiting in reserve on the sideboard, and every single one of them a test you can fail. Add 6 wine glasses at each place, arranged by height like organ pipes. Add a regiment of footmen trained to move without making a sound. Add a menu written entirely in French, propped against the flowers, which you can only half read, and add a corset laced down to 19 inches, which means that a full breath is a luxury you gave up at 7 o'clock and will not get back until midnight. That's a fashionable London dinner table in 1888. The most polished room in the richest city on earth, and one of the most quietly dangerous. A place where you could be admired at the soup and finished by the fish. Where a fork lifted a moment too early could tell 14 strangers everything they wanted to know about your grandmother's kitchen. Where a man's entire career could be decided between the game course and the ices, and nobody at the table would ever be so vulgar as to say so out loud. We're going back there tonight, not to a palace. There is no queen at this table, no throne, no royal protocol. This is something in its own way, stranger. A private dinner in a private house, where the only crown in the room is money, and the only law is the good opinion of people you met an hour ago. And we're not going down the area steps to the kitchen this time either. You and I have stood at that end of a great dinner before, watching the plates go up. Tonight we go up the front steps instead, through the door with the brass lion knocker, and we sit down at the linen with our own name written on a little card. One dinner, one evening, one woman. Everything she would have seen, smelled, tasted, feared and survived, from the first hook of the corset to the last candle on the stairs. So I make these history stories, and honestly I've long since given up trying to work out whether anyone actually sleeps to them, or whether you're all just weirdos who genuinely want to know which one of 9 forks could ruin a marriage in Bayswater. Either way, subscribe if you want. Get comfortable. Here we go. One honest word before the lamps go down, because this channel keeps its account straight. The dinner on this table is real. The 12 courses, the French menu cards, the fish knife wars, the rules about when you may speak and when you must stop eating, the prices of the wine and the wages of the cook. All of it is taken from the household books and etiquette manuals the Victorians actually wrote and actually obeyed. Mrs. Beeton's great volume, first published in 1861 and sitting on 100,000 kitchen shelves by the year we're visiting, laid out these dinners course by course, with the costs totted up in the margins, the manuals of etiquette, and there were dozens, anonymous, stern, best-selling, laid out the rest. The forks, the precedents, the conversation, the exact minute a lady must rise from the table. Every rule you're about to suffer under is documented. The woman herself is the only thing I've made. She is stitched together from the hundreds of young wives those manuals were written for, and, let's be honest, written at. The house is real in every detail, the rules are real, the food is real. She's simply the pair of borrowed eyes I always lend you, so that you don't have to go through this alone. Hold the bedpost, ma'am. Breathe out. You hold the bedpost, you breathe out. Behind you, Ellen takes the laces of your corset in both hands, sets one knee lightly against the small of your back the way she was taught in a much grander house than this one, and pulls. The busk presses flat against your breastbone. The steel bones settle in along your ribs one by one like fingers closing. Somewhere below your shoulder blades the 2 halves of the corset draw toward each other, eyelet by eyelet, and the room's air goes with them. You've done this every day of your adult life. every day to 23 inches, which is comfortable, or at least is what you have taught yourself to call comfortable. Tonight is not 23 inches. Tonight the gown is waiting on the bed behind you, midnight blue silk with a waistband built by the dressmaker over a 19-inch form, because your husband said the Renshaw's table would be full of people who matter, and you said then we had better get the good silk, and neither of you said out loud what you were both thinking, which is that the good silk was cut 2 years ago, when you were newly engaged and slimmer, and slept better. Again, ma'am, out all the way. You empty your lungs like wringing a cloth, and Ellen pulls, and the world narrows by another inch. And when I say tight, I need you to understand what that means in 1888. This is not shapewear. This is not something stretchy you wriggle into and forget. This is a rigid architecture of cotton coutil and steel, hooked shut down your front and hauled shut down your back, and once it is closed you will not bend at the waist again tonight. You will not slump. You will not curl forward over your plate. You will sit for upwards of 3 hours on a chair, with your spine held at the corset's chosen angle, and you will eat, or appear to eat, 12 courses of the richest food ever devised by professional cooks, into a stomach that has been politely informed it is now 2/3 of its usual size. The manuals had a phrase for what you're about to attempt. They called it doing justice to the dinner. Nobody ever wrote down how you were meant to do justice to a dinner you could not physically contain. That part, like most of the truly important parts, you are expected to work out for yourself. Your name, tonight, for our purposes, is Margaret Ashworth. Meg to your sister's Mrs. Arthur Ashworth on the card that came 3 weeks ago, because a married woman's own first name is not something the post has any use for. You are 23 years old. You have been married 10 months and 2 weeks, and for 10 months and 2 weeks you have been running a narrow, tall house on a quiet street north of Hyde Park on £320 a year, which sounds like a fortune to your mother in Shropshire, and is, in this postcode, a tightrope. 1 cook general in the kitchen, 1 housemaid, and Ellen, who is not strictly yours. Ellen is the dressmaker's former apprentice turned lady's maid, who comes in by the day when a house like yours needs, for 1 night, to look like a house that has never counted a shilling in its life. Even hiring her for tonight cost 3 and 6 you will not mention to Arthur, because Arthur has spent the last 3 weeks doing sums of his own out loud at breakfast in his sleep. Because of the card. The card has been on the mantelpiece for 3 weeks, propped against the clock where neither of you can avoid it, and it is not a large card, and it is not an ornate one, because people of the Renshaw's sort do not need ornate. Small, thick cream, engraved, Mr. and Mrs. Josiah Renshaw request the pleasure of the company of Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Ashworth at dinner on Thursday, November 22nd at 8 o'clock. In the bottom corner, the 2 words the manuals say require an answer within a day. RSVP, 10 words, and a date. That's all it is. It is also, and you both know it, the whole of your future engraved in copper plate. Josiah Renshaw builds warehouses, railway money first, then dock money, now warehouse money. The vast brick cathedrals of trade going up along every line into London, each one needing an architect, and each architect needing Mr. Renshaw far more than Mr. Renshaw needs him. Arthur is 29, 5 years out of his articles, junior man at a firm of 3, and for 8 months he has been drawing, costing, and dreaming a warehouse for the Renshaw contract at Salford. The commission that would, at a stroke, turn Ashworth from the name on the smallest office at the firm into a name clients ask for. There are 2 other firms after the same contract. Mr. Renshaw has dined this autumn with men from both of them. And now, in November, with the decision expected before Christmas, Mr. Renshaw's wife has invited Mr. Renshaw's youngest candidate and his wife to dinner. Arthur said, when the card came, that it was a good sign. Then he stood holding it for a long time, and you watched his thumb move over the engraving the way a man checks the edge of a blade, and you understood the thing he was too kind to say. A man alone can be judged on his drawings. A man at dinner is judged on everything else, on his coat, his hands, his ease, his wine glass, on whether he laughs a half-second too eagerly at his host's jokes, and on his wife. That's the part nobody engraves on the card. When a rising man is asked to dinner, it is the wife who is being examined. The manuals say so in almost these words. A man's dinner table, they like to observe, is his wife's report card. A wife who cannot carry herself through 12 courses is a weight a rising man carries for the rest of his life. You have read that sentence, or sentences exactly like it, a dozen times this fortnight, in the little green-bound book of etiquette you bought for £0.50 and keep under the work-basket where the housemaid won't find it. Written by a member of the aristocracy, that's the whole name the author gives, and for £0.50 you get every rule of the dinner table, numbered, and not one word of mercy between the covers. Last one, ma'am. Hold hard. Ellen ties off the laces in a knot that will still be exactly where she leaves it at 1 o'clock tomorrow morning, and steps back, and you let go of the bedpost and stand there learning to breathe again. High and shallow at the top of the chest. Sips of air. The gas bracket beside the mirror purrs and flutters. The fire snaps behind its guard. From 2 floors below you can hear Arthur's boots crossing the hall, turning, crossing back. 7 o'clock striking from the church at the end of the road. 1 hour. In the long glass you look. You make yourself say it. You look right. The blue silk goes over your head in a rustling wave and settles, hook by hook, eye by eye, into a shape that has nothing much to do with the body inside it. 19 inches, the dressmaker's number, achieved. Your reflection is elegant, still, faintly shining. Your reflection also cannot bend, cough, or eat, and you have 3.5 hours of professional eating ahead of you. Then Ellen, buttoning your left glove, 18 buttons of kid leather, each no bigger than a pea, worked with a little steel hook, stops at the wrist and clicks her tongue. This button's going, ma'am, hanging by 2 threads. I can snip it now, or leave it and pray. You look down. The second button from the wrist, the one that takes the strain when your hand bends. Snipped now means a gaping glove at the Renshaw's table. Left alone, it may hold till midnight, or it may go rolling across a stranger's carpet at the exact moment the whole room happens to be looking at you. There is no time to sew it. There is never any time at the exact moment a thing starts to fail. Leave it, you say, and pray. Ellen leaves it. Downstairs the doorbell shivers on its wire. The carriage, hired, 4 shillings for the evening, another sum Arthur did out loud, is at the curb. 1 hour from now you will be sitting at the most beautiful table you have ever seen in your life, holding a menu you cannot entirely read, with a fortune in silver arranged around your plate like surgical instruments, and every person in that room will be watching you without ever once appearing to look. Taste everything, finish nothing. That's what Ellen told you this afternoon while she pressed the gown. She was a still-room girl and then an underlady's maid in a house in Grosvenor Square before the fever took her hearing on one side and cost her the place, and she has watched 100 of these dinners from the doorway side of the door. Taste everything, finish nothing, ma'am, and never be the first to put your fork down or the last to pick it up. You're about to find out what those 3 sentences are worth. They are worth more than the gown. Arthur is waiting at the foot of the stairs in his evening black, and for a moment coming down to him with your hand on the rail and your skirt gathered. You see him the way the Renshaws will see him in an hour. A tall young man, decent looking, in a tailcoat that fits because he had it made properly even though it took a month's savings, holding his white gloves in one hand and in the other a small green book. Your green book. The half-crown etiquette manual from under the work basket. Page 40, he says, instead of telling you that you look beautiful, which he will remember or do in the carriage. Too late, the way he always remembers things. The order of the courses. I've been through it twice more. Soup, then fish, then the entrees, then the releve. I keep wanting to say it wrong. Releve, releve. Releve, you say. The remove, the big joint. You know this, Arthur. You've known it for a fortnight. I know it in the hall of my own house. He tries to smile and mostly manages. Ask me again at their table. The carriage smells of old leather, horse, and the lavender water you touched to your wrists an hour ago, and it moves through the November dark at the pace of a city that has somewhere to be. Street lamp, fog, street lamp. Through the glass you watch London put itself through its evening change. Shop shutters coming down over the plate glass on Westbourne Grove. Gas flaring yellow-white in the ironmonger's window while a boy carries the display baskets in. A crossing sweeper leaning on his broom, done for the day because the people who tip are all indoors dressing. Other carriages, more of them the further west you go, each one a lacquered black box with somebody in it being carried towards somebody else's food and judgment. Arthur recites, low, with his eyes shut. Not the courses now, the people. Colonel Fane, Mrs. Renshaw's uncle, Indian Army, retired. They say he's deaf on the left side and fierce about it. A barrister named Prynne coming up fast. They say Renshaw wants him for the company's work. Something in shipping and his wife. A doctor and his wife. Miss Renshaw, the daughter, just out this year. First season behind her. And us, a breath. And I'm told Mr. Renshaw doesn't discuss business at his own table. Ever. It's a rule. Then what is tonight for? Tonight is how he discusses business, Arthur says, and opens his eyes. And neither of you laughs, because it isn't a joke. You know the rest, because you have heard nothing else at your own small dinner table for 3 weeks. Josiah Renshaw, 60, self-made twice over, a man who, Arthur's senior partner swears this is true, still carries in his waistcoat pocket the first shilling he earned as a measuring boy on the Liverpool docks. A man who lost a warehouse roof at Bradford 11 years ago, 6 days after handover, because his then architect had saved money on iron. Nobody died. The architect's firm did. Renshaw has never once spoken of it in Arthur's hearing, and Arthur has never once stopped thinking about it. The carriage swings south, and the streets widen, and then you are in the Renshaw's part of Bayswater, and the houses stop being houses and become cliffs. Great stucco terraces, 5 stories and a basement, white as wedding cake under the gas lamps, each front door up its own flight of steps, each with its area railings guarding the deep trench of the basement kitchens below the pavement. Porticos, pillars. The fog lies in the square gardens like something sleeping. Arthur takes out his watch, tilts it to the window light, and makes a sound you've never heard him make before. We're early. He says it the way other men say we're sinking. 12 minutes early. And here is a rule they truly did live by, and you may as well learn it now in the dark with him. You must not be late to a dinner party, because the manuals rank lateness just below fraud. But you must not be early either. Early is worse in its way. Early means the hostess is still on the stairs, the cook is still plating, the footman is still buttoning his livery. Early exposes the machinery. And the whole point of a house like this is that the machinery must never be seen. So the manuals prescribe in cold print the exact remedy every couple in a hired carriage discovered for themselves. You drive on, you go round, you circle the square at a walk, past the same railings and the same doors, 1 lap, 2 laps, however many the watch demands, while inside every other carriage doing the same slow orbit, some other guest sits rigid in evening dress, pretending this is a normal way for adults to spend 12 minutes. So you circle, the horse's hooves change note at each corner, and on the second slow pass you make Arthur look at the house. Number 11. Every window on the first floor is lit. That'll be the drawing room, long as 3 rooms of yours. Gas blazing behind the curtains, and lower down through the area railings, a different light. The basement windows, hot and busy, a shadow crossing and recrossing behind the glass. Down there, right now, in a kitchen you will never see, a cook, and her kitchen maid and a scullery maid and whatever hired help tonight required are at our 9 or 10 of the longest day of their month. 12 courses for 14 people do not begin at 8 o'clock. They began this morning with stock and ice and a fishmonger's boy running the turbot to the door. You know what that kitchen is like. That's the strange thing about you, Meg. The thing the blue silk is built to hide. You're 1 generation off the other side of the railings. Your grandmother cooked for a family in Chester, cooked dinners like this one, or the country cousins of dinners like this one, for £26 a year, and her board. You grew up on her stories the way other children grow up on fairy tales, the 7 o'clock scramble, the sauce that breaks at the worst moment, the butler counting the silver back into its baize-lined drawers at 1 in the morning. £26 a year. Hold that number, because Mrs. Beeton's book, the same fat volume that is very probably down in that basement kitchen at this moment, propped open and grease-spotted, prints specimen menus for dinners exactly like tonight's, and prints what they cost. A dinner of 12 courses for 14 covers, with the flowers, the ices bought in from the confectioner, the hired waiters, and the wine, the claret, the champagne, the hock, the sherry, the port, comes out in the household books of the day at somewhere between £40 and £60, 1 dinner, 1 evening, more than Renshaw's cook earns in a year and a half of cooking his dinners. Nobody at the table tonight will mention this. It is not that they don't know it. It is that knowing it and never mentioning it is precisely what the table is for. 3rd lap, Arthur says softly, watch in hand, and then we're respectable. On the 3rd lap you pass another carriage doing its own slow orbit the opposite way, and for 1 lamplit second you look through 2 panes of glass into the face of a woman your own age, sitting bolt upright in wine-coloured silk, gloved hands folded, being driven in a circle so that she may arrive at the correct minute, and she looks back at you, and neither of you smiles, and both of you understand each other completely. Then the watch says 4 minutes past 8, which the manuals bless, within the quarter hour, never on the stroke like a tradesman, and the carriage pulls up at the foot of the steps of number 11, and the door of the house opens before your knocker hand can even rise, because a good footman hears wheels the way a gun dog hears wings. Warmth rolls out of the doorway, gaslight, orange and gold. the smell of a rich house in winter, beeswax, hothouse flowers, coal, and underneath it, faint as a rumour, the deep, savoury breath of the kitchen rising up through 5 stories of carpet. Arthur hands you down. Under the white glove, his fingers are cold as keys. Meg, he says it very quietly, looking up at the light. Whatever I am after tonight, I was never any of it without you. Which is, you note for the record at last, and in his own way, you look beautiful. Then you go up the steps and the house takes you. It takes your things first. That is how these houses begin, by subtraction. In the hall, black and white marble underfoot, a barometer, a long mirror, a footman at each door like matched vases. Your velvet cloak is lifted from your shoulders from behind without a word, by hands you never see. Arthur's hat and coat vanish the same way. In the mirror you catch the two of you, suddenly reduced to evening dress and nerves, and you have half a breath to check the glove button. Holding, 2 threads, holding. Before the butler, grey-haired, gravel-voiced, magnificent, has your names. He goes up the stairs ahead of you. You follow, 1 flight, your hand barely riding the rail, your heart going like a sewing machine. From above comes the sound of a party being polite. A dozen voices at conversational pitch, a woman's laugh quickly tidied. The butler stops in the drawing-room doorway and announces you the way the manuals require, which is to say he makes you into a fact. Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Ashworth. And every face in the long, bright, flower-heavy room turns just for a moment, just politely, to see what has arrived. Here we go. The drawing-room is longer than your whole house is deep. 2 fires, 1 at each end, both banked high. Gas in frosted globes, and on the tables, everywhere, hothouse flowers in November, stephanotis and forced roses, a quiet fortune breathing out sweetness into air already thick with warmth. 14 people stand about in it in the loose constellations of the quarter hour before dinner, and the room performs the first trick all such rooms perform. It makes you feel, in the same instant, completely invisible and completely watched. Mrs. Renshaw comes to you first, because that is her job, and she does it the way a good hostess does everything, as if it were her pleasure. She's perhaps 50, silver threading the brown of her hair, dove-grey satin, no great show of jewels, 1 brooch, old, good, and eyes that do a complete inventory of you in the time it takes to smile. The gown, the gloves, the way you stand. You feel the inventory happen, item by item, the way you'd feel a draft. Mrs. Ashworth, how good of you to come such a cold night. A pressure of fingers, precisely calibrated. My husband speaks of yours as a young man who measures twice. I hope you'll find us easy company. 14 words, and you understand 2 things at once. That she knows exactly why you're here, and that she will never once show it again. Mr. Renshaw's a different weather system. Big, white-whiskered, waistcoated like a mare, a voice built for dockyards and dialed down imperfectly for drawing-rooms. He shakes Arthur's hand and says nothing about warehouses, nothing about Salford, nothing about iron. He says, "Glad you found the house, Ashworth." Some men circle the square half the night, and there is one dreadful suspended second. Did he see? Does he know? Is the window of his study on the square, before you catch the small dry light in his eye and realise this is what he says to every guest, because every guest has done it, because everyone in this world is always, forever, circling the square. Arthur laughs a half-second too eagerly. You would give a year of your life to take that half-second back for him. The others assemble out of the warmth, name by name, and you do what the Green Book told you to do. You fix each name to a physical fact, like pinning specimens. Colonel Fane, Mrs. Renshaw's uncle, a dried riverbed of a face, magnificent white moustache, stands with his weight on his heels like a man refusing to be moved from a position, and he keeps his good right ear turned to the room like a weapon presented. The shipping man and his wife, middle-aged, kind-faced, upholstered, the doctor, spare and quick, and his wife in garnet velvet. Mr. Prynne, the barrister, young, 30 perhaps, beautiful collar, small bright eyes that move around the room the way a gull's do over a harbour, missing nothing, valuing everything. And Miss Adela Renshaw, the daughter, 18, in white, pretty, overbrushed, overlaunched, standing beside the fire with the particular stillness of a girl who's been told all her life not to fidget and has converted the fidgeting entirely inward. Her first season is behind her. No engagement came of it. In this room, in this year, that fact hangs on her like a reading of her temperature, and everybody is too polite to consult it, and everybody has consulted it. You know her stillness. You wore it at her age, at smaller tables. You catch her eye for a quarter of a second and give her the smallest possible smile. One woman's flag dipped to another's, and she returns it so quickly, so gratefully, that it cost you something in the chest. Then the butler is in the doorway again, and he says the 8 words the whole room has been waiting for while pretending to be interested in each other. Dinner is served, madam. And the room, which was a loose cloud of people, crystallizes instantly into a procession. Because you do not walk into a Victorian dinner, you are marched in 2 by 2 in an order worked out by your hostess days ago, with the care of a chess problem, each gentleman assigned to each lady by rank, age, and usefulness, and the assignment quietly murmured to each man before you arrived. Mr. Renshaw offers his arm to the shipping man's wife, the senior lady present, and leads. The doctor takes Miss Renshaw. Arthur, you see it happen across the room, see him blink, is given the doctor's wife, which is an honest middle placing, nothing cruel in it. Mrs. Renshaw will come last of all with the senior gentleman, closing the procession like a shepherd, and to you comes Colonel Fane, 70 if he's a day, presenting his arm as if it were the year 1850 and you were about to open a regimental ball. Mrs. Ashworth, they've given you the old man. My condolences. The good ear swivels to you. Sit on my right side and we'll get along. Everything said on my left these 20 years has been wasted breath. You take the arm. It is like taking hold of a banister. And down you go, the whole glittering caterpillar of you, down the staircase in step, past the ancestors the Renshaws have bought to fill their walls, toward a pair of double doors standing open on the smell of flowers and hot wax and clear soup, into the dining room. And here, stop. Because for one moment in the doorway before the seating separates you from your own eyes, you see the table entire from slightly above, the way a general on a hill sees a field, and it stops you the way the manuals promise these tables were designed to stop people. 16 feet of white damask, ironed on the table itself so that it lies like poured milk, the central crease sharp as a mason's line down the exact middle. Silver in ranks, crystal in squadrons, 6 glasses at every cover, sherry, hock, claret, champagne, and their taller and shorter cousins, 70, 80 pieces of glass catching the light of 40 candles, because Mrs. Renshaw, like the best hostesses of her decade, has kept wax candles for the table even in a house plumbed for gas. Candlelight is kinder to faces and to pearls, and everyone knows it. Down the centre a low hedge of ferns and white flowers, built low on purpose. The manuals are strict about this, so that no guest is ever walled off from the face opposite. Epergne of fruit that will not be touched for 3 hours, pineapples that cost more than your housemaid's month, standing there as architecture, and at every place a little propped card with a name, and beside it a second card, larger, stiff, gilt-edged, written out in a copper plate hand, the menu. 14 of them down the table, one for each guest, like orders of battle. This is service à la Russe, dinner in the Russian style, and it is worth 30 seconds of your held breath to understand what that means and how strange and how new it still is. Your grandmother's employers dined à la Française, every dish on the table at once, a landscape of food, joints and pies and fowls all steaming together, guests carving for their neighbours, helping themselves, a great genial scrum. The Russian ambassador's table, Prince Kurakin's, in France, back around 1810, began the new fashion that took most of the century to conquer England. Nothing on the table but flowers, silver and fruit, the food invisible, backstage plated by hands you never see. Each course carried in by servants one at a time, in a fixed, unchangeable order, offered to you at your left shoulder and taken away again. By this decade the conquest is complete. No fashionable London table dines any other way. Understand what was actually traded, though, because it is the whole reason tonight is an ordeal, and not a meal. Under the old style, you could see the entire dinner at once, and pace yourself like a sensible animal. Under the new style you can see nothing. The dinner comes at you out of a door, in waves, in an order you must know in advance, of a length you must gauge from a card written in French. Service à la Russe took the food off the table and put it into the realm of faith. You do not eat this dinner, you navigate it, which is why the little gilt-edged card beside your place is not really a menu at all. It is a map, and you cannot quite read it. The footman draws your chair. You learn his face without meaning to. Late 20s, sandy, steady-eyed, the one from the left-hand door of the hall, and you sit, and the table closes around you like water. Colonel Fane on your left, his good ear inward, thank God. On your right, at the corner of your eye, the bright collar and brighter eyes of Mr. Prynne. Across the low ferns, Arthur, seated between the doctor's wife and Miss Renshaw, so distant by the arithmetic of the table that he might as well be in another postcode. He looks at you for exactly as long as is safe, which is no time at all. Now the drill you rehearsed in a cold bedroom with the green book propped on the mantel. Gloves, off at table, always, the moment you are seated. A lady never eats gloved. 18 buttons unhooked under the table's edge. Quickly, calmly. The left glove eases over the loose button, holds 2 threads, holds, and both gloves are laid across your lap. Napkin. A folded cathedral of damask with a bread roll hidden in it like a relic. You half open it, never flat, never a full unfurling. The manuals call a fully spread napkin the mark of a man who fears for his trousers, and lay it over the gloves. Posture. The corset has opinions and you obey them. Hands. In the lap when idle. Never the wrists on the table. Never the elbows anywhere. And the silver. You count it without moving your head, the way Ellen taught you at the ironing board. To your left, a rank of forks. To your right, knives and the soup spoon, bone-handled and heavy. Above the plate, laid crosswise, the small squadron for the far country of pudding and after. There are more implements at your single place than your mother's whole table carried on Christmas Day, and everyone has a course it belongs to and a way of being held, and there is exactly one rule that will carry you through, the rule Ellen gave you like a coin sewn into a hem, the rule half the untitled ambitious of London were silently steering by that decade. Outside in, always outside in. Whatever comes through that door, you take the outermost implement and trust the table was laid by professionals. Doubt the rule once. Hesitate. Reach inward. Improvise. And the silver stops being a tool and becomes a witness for the prosecution. You breathe as deeply as 19 inches allows. You look, at last, properly, at the gilt-edged card. Dîner du 22nd November 1888, and below, in a hand like stretched wire, the whole of the next 3.5 hours, in a language you last studied at Miss Purvis's school in Shrewsbury, 8 years and 1 lifetime ago. Somewhere behind the service door a clock finishes striking the half hour. Somewhere below your feet, under the carpet, under the floorboards, down where the other half of this evening lives, a cook wipes her forehead with the back of a wrist and says, "To nobody now." The soup is coming. Here is where the torture begins. The strange, upholstered, candlelit torture the title of this evening promised you. And it begins, like most Victorian tortures, with something beautiful arriving on your left. But first, while the footmen are still gliding into position along the wall, you read the map. You read it the way you once read examination papers. Fast. Once through for terror, once through for sense. Huîtres natives. Oysters. You know that word from restaurant windows. Consommé à la julienne. Crème d'artichaut. 2 soups, 1 clear, 1 thick. You know this from the Green Book, which says a well-composed menu always offers both, and says, in italics, that you must choose one and never, under any circumstances, both. Turbot sauce hollandaise, éperlance frite, fish, and fish again. The great flat one and something small and fried. Then the entrée, and here the copper plate closes over your head like dark water. Riz de veau au petit pois. Côtelette d'agneau à la soubise, riz de veau, rice of veal, laughter of veal. You have no idea, none. You are holding a card that is deciding the next 3 hours of your body's life, and 1 line of it might as well be written in Persian. Then, selle de mouton, selle, saddle. Saddle of mutton, the relevé, the remove, the great roast Arthur rehearsed in the hall. Punch à la romaine. Punch, blessedly, is punch in any language. Faisan, perdreau sur croûte. Birds, it is November, they will be pheasant and partridge. Chou-fleur au gratin. Charlotte russe. Gelée au marasquin. These sweet things, the entremets. Croûte d'anchois. Anchovy, this savoury, the little salty full stop the English insist on placing at the end of every banquet. Glaces, ices, and last, needing no card at all because it has been physically present all evening, dessert. The pineapples, the hothouse grapes, the crystallized fruits waiting down the table like the century's most expensive threat. 12 courses, by the decade's way of counting. 3.5 hours, 19 inches. You set the card back against its little silver stand, and you notice your own hand is steady, and you are absurdly proud of that. And then the first course is at your elbow, and the evening has begun without asking whether you are ready. Oysters on ice, with brown bread and butter cut thin as paper. This one is mercy. There is a fork for it, small, 3-pronged, outermost of all, outside in, always outside in, and oysters ask nothing of you but nerve. Around the table the shells click softly against china. Chablis appears in one of your 6 glasses without your seeing the hand that poured it. You take 2 oysters and decline a third with the small tilt of the head Ellen made you practice. Never the word no. Never a hand over the plate like a cottager guarding porridge. The tilt, the half smile, the merest shake. Because refusing food gracefully is a whole grammar here, and you will be conjugating it all night. Taste everything. Finish nothing. Then the soup. It arrives as a question, murmured at your left shoulder by the sandy-haired footman. Clear or thick, madam? And you say clear because the green book told you a lady chooses the clear being lighter, and because artichoke cream is a corset's enemy, and the consommé comes, amber as pale sherry, gold fat dispersed, vegetables cut into threads so fine they must have cost some kitchen maid an hour of her afternoon and most of a knuckle. It is, you realise, on the first spoonful, the best thing you've ever tasted in your life. Somewhere below this floor is a woman who can do this, and tonight 14 people will spend 30 seconds on it and never learn her name. And even soup, especially soup, is an examination with rules. The spoon is the great betrayer. The manuals give soup more column inches than adultery. You fill the spoon by pushing it away from you across the plate, never toward. You drink from the side of the spoon, never the point. You do not blow on it, however it steams. You wait and suffer. You do not tilt the plate, or if you absolutely must, you tilt it away from you, though the strictest books say a lady simply leaves the last spoonfuls as tribute, and you make no sound. None. The Green Book's sentence has been stitched behind your eyes for a fortnight. Soup should enter the mouth as silently as it left the tureen. 14 people, 14 spoons, and the room quiet enough that one honest slurp would land like a dropped tray. You've been schooled, Colonel Fane says at your left into the silence, not unkindly. His good ear is toward you. His voice is pitched with the precision of a man who has spent decades calculating what he himself can hear. I watched you read that card like a subaltern reading his first field orders, twice through, no lip moving. Good girl. There is nothing in the Green Book about being seen reading the menu in terror. You decide in the space of half a spoonful to spend honesty, a currency the book never mentions, and the only one you hold in quantity. Twice through, you admit, and one line of it defeated me entirely. I've been sitting here wondering whether year.The will arrive, and what I shall do to it when it does. The moustache moves. Under it, something that is almost certainly a smile is being suppressed with military thoroughness. Sweetbreads, ma'am. year.The is sweetbreads, and what a sweetbread is a thing no lady has ever been told at a dinner table, and I shan't break the line. Eat it with the fork alone and think of it as cloud. My advice on the whole of French cookery, formed over 40 years, never translate. Translation ruins the menu and the appetite together. The French write the card, the English eat the dinner, and everyone's dignity survives on the ignorance. And that is the first thing tonight that is actually honestly funny, and you laughed, small, corseted, correct but real, and feel the table register it. A young wife laughing at the old colonel's remark, which is exactly what a young wife at her first great dinner is for, and for the first time since the knocker, you're not a candidate's wife under examination. You are a guest for about 4 minutes. Because the soup plates vanish. That is the only word. The footmen do not clear so much as conjure. And the fish comes in, and with the fish comes the silver question you have been dreading since Tuesday. The fish knife. Understand, and when I say this was a controversy, I need you to understand that means a real one, conducted in printed books with casualties. The fish knife is new money's knife. 50 years ago it barely existed. The old way, the way of the old families with silver chests going back before anybody dreamed of a special blade for turbot, was to eat fish with 2 forks, or with a fork and a scrap of bread crust, because a steel blade was said to taint the flesh. Then the century got rich. Electroplating arrived in the 1840s, and suddenly a Manchester manufacturer could lay a table that outshone a duke's, and the silversmiths, needing new things to sell to new fortunes, produced the fish slice, the fish knife, the fish fork. Pretty, scrolled, specialised. The manuals of your decade have surrendered. They set the fish knife squarely in the diagram, and the green book says plainly that fish is eaten with the silver fish knife and fork. But everybody at a table like this one knows the older code underneath. The whisper that a fish knife is the mark of a house that bought its silver rather than inheriting it, and knows that the Renshaws bought theirs, gleaming, monogrammed 10 years ago, and that Mrs. Renshaw has laid it without apology. So the turbot arrives, white, pearly under its lacquer of hollandaise, and you do the only wise thing. The thing Ellen told you at the ironing board with a pin between her teeth. In another woman's house, use the silver she gives you, her table, her law. You take up the Renshaw's fish knife and their fish fork, and you lift the flesh apart along its natural seams. No sawing, the knife a wand, not a saw. And it is easy, actually. The blade was designed for exactly this, whatever the old families say, and you feel, from your right, attention, thin, cool, deliberate, like a draught from a door ajar. You take up the fish knife without a flicker, Mrs. Ashworth. Mr. Prynne's voice is court-trained, low, carrying, every consonant pressed like a trouser crease. He has not touched his own. His fish is coming apart effortfully, elegantly under 2 forks. I congratulate you. Half of London hesitates over that piece of silver as if it were loaded. The table does not fall silent. Tables like this never fall silent. Silence would be a scene. But you have the sensation of a lens turning somewhere and coming to rest on you. 2 forks. He has chosen the old code at this table over his hostess's own silver, and he has said the word loaded, and he is watching you with the pleasant patience of a man who has asked a witness an unanswerable question, and has nowhere else to be. If you defend the fish knife, you are new money defending its badge. If you flinch toward his forks now, you convict yourself of having been wrong a moment ago. This is the actual game, the one under the linen. It is not about knives, and it never was. You give it the tilt of the head, the half smile, the same grammar you use for refusing a dish. It seemed to me, Mr. Prynne, that questioning my hostess's silver at her own table would be a poor return for the pleasure of sitting at it. Her table, her law. I'd eat with a trowel if Mrs. Renshaw laid one. 1 beat, 2. Then Colonel Fane makes a noise into his hock that is disgracefully close to a bark, and Mr. Prynne's face opens into a smile of genuine unbanked pleasure, the smile of a fencer whose button has been cleanly touched, and he inclines his head a precise half-inch and takes up deliberately, ceremonially, his own fish-knife. Her table, he agrees, her law. Well returned, Mrs. Ashworth. And down the table, without turning your head, you feel rather than see Mrs. Renshaw's glance rest on you for a quarter of a second, unreadable as the fog outside, and move on. You breathe. High, shallow, careful. 4 courses down. You have eaten 2 oysters, 7 spoonfuls of consommé, and 3 forkfuls of turbot, and refused the fried smelts entirely with the tilt and the smile, and the corset is already keeping its ledger. A tightness climbing slowly from waist to ribs, an arithmetic of inches that no menu card records. The gas above and the candles before you have raised the room a degree since you sat down, maybe two. You can feel the heat standing against your bare shoulders like a person. 3.5 hours the manual's allot. You're 40 minutes in. Behind your chair, unseen, the sandy-haired footman lifts your fish plate away as silently as snow sliding from a roof, and the great machine below the floor sends up the next wave. The entrees. Course 5, and the first fork of the evening's second rank. Outside in, always outside in. And the first true fork-alone course, because the entrees are the kitchen's showpieces, the made dishes, boned and shaped and sauced past any need of a blade, and the manuals say a knife touched to an entree insults the cook. The sweetbreads come first, riding on a raft of green peas that have no earthly business existing in November, and exist anyway, because there are hothouses in Kent and money in Bayswater. Cloud, the Colonel promised, and Cloud is right. The fork goes through without permission being asked. Then the lamb cutlets in their pale onion cream, each one wearing a little paper frill on its bone like a dancer's cuff. And here the Green Book has one of its strictest and strangest commandments. The frill is a handle in a chop house, and an ornament in a dining room. However temptingly the bone presents itself, however obviously the frill exists to be held, fingers do not touch food at this table. Not chops, not birds, nothing but bread, and dessert later, under laws of its own. You dismantle the cutlet with fork and the merest assistance of knife edge, and leave the frilled bone on the plate like a small flag on a surrendered position. And it is here, at the entrees, halfway down your careful forkful, that you look across the low hedge of ferns and see that Miss Adela Renshaw is drowning. It is nothing. It would photograph as nothing. But you know the stillness, remember? You wore it. The footman is at her left with the sweetbreads, and she has gone rigid. Fork suspended, eyes down, because you can read the whole catastrophe in her shoulders. She has lost her place on the map. She has taken a full helping of the first entree without thinking, the way one does at family supper, and has just seen the second entree leave the service door, and has understood that there are 7 courses still to come, and that her own mother's table is about to defeat her in front of 14 witnesses. Her mother's table. That is the refinement of it. Every girl in England is schooled on other people's dinners. Adela is being examined on her own, where a mistake is not gaucherie but treason. She looks up, not at her mother, never at her mother, and her eyes cross yours, and you do the only thing one drowning swimmer a table's width away can do for another. Your gilt-edged menu card is propped by your right hand. You tilt it, unhurried, as if consulting it yourself. You are always consulting it. Half the table is always consulting it. That is what it is for. And you let one gloveless finger rest for a slow second beside the long column of what is still to come. The mutton, the punch, the birds, the sweets, the savoury, the ices. The distance left to swim. Then you lay your fork, deliberately, audibly to no one, across your barely touched sweetbreads in the finished position, and you give her a quarter second of the smallest smile of the evening. Taste everything. Finish nothing. Pass it on. Adela's shoulders come down perhaps half an inch. She sets her fork across her plate. When the cutlets reach her, she takes one and eats a third of it, and by the time her plate is lifted, she has arranged her face back into an evening face, and nobody has seen anything, because there was nothing to see. Nothing but 2 menu cards and a fork, at a table where a fork can carry a message no footman could be trusted with. You will not speak a word to this girl until 10:30. It is already the most important conversation you will have tonight, though you don't know that yet and won't for 2 more hours. Watch the room instead, while the plates change again. You have earned 30 seconds of watching, and this is the sight the area railings never showed you. The machine seen from above, from inside, from the paying side of the glass. 3 footmen and the butler for 14 covers. The butler at the sideboard, throned among the reserve silver, decanting, carving, marshalling, the footmen circling in orbits as fixed as anything in the almanac. Every dish enters at the left shoulder, every glass fills at the right. No servant speaks, except the murmured clear or thick at the soup. No servant's sleeve ever crosses your sight line. A hand in white cotton comes and goes at the edge of your plate like weather. They have removed, so far, something like 60 pieces of china and glass from this table, and you have not once heard porcelain touch porcelain. When I say trained, I need you to understand what that means in this house. The sandy-haired one, the tall one, first footman, 6 feet if he's an inch, because footmen were hired by the inch, and a tall matched pair could command £5 a year more than short ones. That man has practised laying a dinner service the way soldiers practice musketry, by numbers, in silence, under the butler's eye against the clock, and at least one of tonight's 3, most likely 2, do not belong to this house at all. Hired men, greenhouse grown for the evening from an agency or the confectioner's, at 7 and 6 the night, wearing the house's livery so that the machine should look, to 14 guests, eternal. 12 courses, 14 covers, somewhere between 40 and 60 pounds, all told, wine and flowers and hired hands and ice. And this is where you cannot help it. This is your grandmother rising in you between the cutlets and the mutton, doing the sums the linen exists to smother. The cook below stairs, the one whose consommé briefly made you believe in a benevolent universe. If the Renshaws pay well, and houses like this pay well, she earns perhaps £30 a year. The kitchen maid under her, 14. The scullery girl who's been elbow deep in copper pans since 4 o'clock and will be until 2, perhaps 10. Tonight's single dinner, 1 evening, 1 table, gone by midnight, cost more than the 3 of them together earn in a year. The pineapple alone, the one standing untouched in the épingle being architecture, cost more at the shop in Covent Garden than the scullery girl sees in a month. Nobody at this table will say so, you least of all. You are the one person here who could set out the arithmetic to the farthing, and the whole engineering of your evening, the silk, the 19 inches, the borrowed maid, the practised tilt of the head, exists to make sure nobody ever suspects you know it. That is the strange torture inside the strange torture. Not the corset, not the courses. It is sitting in the warm light, being carefully, expensively ignorant of everything you know. The releve arrives, the remove, course 6, the saddle of mutton, and the table lifts slightly to meet it, because this is the keel of the whole dinner, the great roast the entire French navigation exists to deliver, and it is as English as rain. Not that you see the joint. That is the point of the Russian style. The carving happens at the sideboard, under the butler's hands, the long blade moving in strokes thin as pages, because mutton is carved thin and across, and a man who hacks a saddle is remembered longer than a man who forges cheques. What reaches your plate are 2 slices laid like fallen silk, a spoonful of red currant jelly, potatoes, and the first claret of the evening in the largest of your glasses. Mr. Renshaw eats it the way other men attend church. You see him, down the table's length between the candle flames, the big shoulders settled, the whiskers moving, 10,000 pounds of dining room around him, and his whole face saying nothing but mutton. And you find, to your surprise, that you can eat it too. 3 slow forkfuls, 4, because the corset's ledger has a strange grace written into it. What you cannot do in quantity, you learn to do in attention. 1 mouthful of mutton, properly attended to, under wax candles, at the far side of the longest bridge of your life. Taste the way the whole first year of your marriage has felt. Costly, serious, better than you dare admit out loud. Salford man, your husband, the Colonel says to your left, at the exact pitch that reaches you and no farther. He's demolished his mutton like a fortification, and is regarding Arthur across the ferns with a professional eye. So my niece tells me. Warehouses, iron and brick and no nonsense. A pause. The moustache lowers a fraction confidentially. I've watched this table 20 years, Mrs. Ashworth. Renshaw feeds the men he's weighing. He doesn't weigh them at the scales, mind. Never at table, never a word of business, you'll see. He weighs the sight of them, whether a man's fork shakes, whether his wife looks at him before she answers a question. The good ear turns to you like a gun laid. You haven't once looked at him before answering. Keep on. And before you can decide what to do with that, with the fact that the kindest man at this table has just told you, in the friendliest possible way, that you are right all along, that the examination is real, that it has been running since the knocker, that it is running now, the table turns. You've been told about this. The Green Book gives it a paragraph dryly, as though describing the rotation of crops, and no paragraph in the book is stranger in the performance. A hostess cannot leave half her table marooned. Each guest has 2 neighbours, and the first half of dinner is owed to one, the second half to the other, and the whole table must change partners at once, must pivot mid-course on her signal like a figure in a dance. Or somewhere down the line one soul ends up stranded between 2 turned backs, which a good hostess considers a wound on her own body. So, somewhere between the mutton and its removal, Mrs. Renshaw finishes her sentence to the senior gentleman at her right, lets her fingers rest a moment on the little ivory fan that has lain closed beside her wine-glasses all evening. You noticed it at the soup, carried in on her, laid down like an instrument she might yet play, and turns smoothly as a page being turned to the gentleman at her left, and the whole table, without one word being spoken about it, turns with her. 14 people rotating in their conversations like gears meshing, the shipping man's wife pivoting from host to doctor, Arthur pivoting from the doctor's wife to Miss Renshaw, the Colonel, with a last confidential rumble of "Keep on, ma'am," presenting his deaf side to you, and his good ear to the garnet velvet lady on his left, which delivers you by the geometry of the linen to the gentleman on your right. Mrs. Ashworth, says Mr. Prynne, turning, folding his hands, regarding you with the bright, unhurried interest of a man opening a brief he expects to enjoy. At last, I've been rehearsing my apology for the fish knife for 3 courses. The candles have burned an inch. The room is another degree warmer. 6 courses down, 6 to come, and the second half of the examination begins now. Talking to Colonel Fane was standing in front of a fire. You simply warmed. Talking to Mr. Prynne is chess with the clock running, and both of you pretending there is no clock. and both of you knowing the other is pretending, and this, the manuals will tell you in their bloodless way, is what dinner conversation is for. The rules you are given fit on a thimble. No politics, no religion, no money, no illness, no servants, no scandal. Nothing, in short, that any human being actually wishes to discuss. And above all, nothing sustained, nothing heated, nothing that could make a neighbour turn her head. What remains, once you've banished everything interesting, is technique. And Mr. Prynne is a technician the way the turbot was a fish. He does not ask what your husband is hoping for from Mr. Renshaw. He asks whether you find Bayswater air agrees with you, and listens to the shape of your answer for how long you have lived there and on what scale. He does not ask what Arthur earns. He asks whether you go often to the theatre, and reads your no thank you as fluently as a bank reads a signature. Every question is a little probe wrapped in wool, and you parry with wool of your own, and it is exhausting, and you are horrified to notice somewhere in the second glass of claret you are not really drinking. Enjoyable. He is good. Being played by a good player is a kind of compliment. The Green Book never mentions that either. You watch the table, he says at last, dropping the wool entirely for one bare move, more closely than anyone here. You watched me before the fish ever arrived. May I ask an impertinent question, Mrs. Ashworth? You may ask it. I reserve the manual's right to answer a different one. The smile again, the fencer's smile. Who taught you? Not a school. Schools produce girls who know the rules. You know the... He turns one hand over, hunting the word, and chooses, of course, the lawyers. The case law. Ellen, you do not say. A deaf-sided lady's maid at 3 and 6 the evening, pressing silk in my back bedroom. A grandmother in Chester who carried dinners like this up basement stairs for £26 a year, and told me, when I was 8, that the quality don't eat, they perform, and I thought she was being bitter, and she was being precise. My grandmother, you say, was in service, and you say it in the voice you'd use for was fond of music, and you watch it land. This is the boldest thing you've done tonight. Bolder than the fish knife. You have handed him mid-game the very fact your whole evening is upholstered to hide. But you learned something at the fish course. The man collects unflinchingness. Flinch, and he files you under everyone else. Hold, and... He holds your eye for a moment and inclines his head the same precise half-inch he gave the fish knife. Then she taught you the only thing worth knowing about tables like this one, he says quietly, wool gone altogether. Wool. That everyone at them is in service. Some of us are merely paid worse for it. And the strange thing, the thing you will turn over in the unlaced dark hours from now, is that he means it, and that it is the first wholly true sentence anyone has said at this table since the soup. Then the lights change. No, the light stays. It is the table that changes key. The claret glasses pause. Down the line the footmen are setting before each guest a small tall glass, frosted on a little plate, and the room makes the sound of 14 people being quietly delighted. Punch à la Romaine, course 7. Roman punch, a half-frozen slush of lemon ice and Italian meringue, christened with rum and champagne, arriving now, precisely now, in the exact middle of the menu, and it is the single most humane thing the 19th century ever set on a dinner table. The physicians of the day supplied the theory. The iced spirit rouses the appetite, cuts the richness, divides the dinner's first watch from its second, and the theory can say what it likes, because the body knows what this is. It is the interval. It is the half-time whistle. It is the one moment in 3.5 hours when the machine itself admits that no living stomach, corseted or free, was ever meant to travel from oysters to pheasant without mercy. You take the little spoon. Outside in has long since become instinct. Your hands have stopped consulting you, and the first cold spoonful goes down through the heat of the room, through the claret warmth and the candle warmth and the gas warmth, like a window opened in a fever ward. For 90 seconds nobody examines anybody. The Colonel has his eyes closed over his glass with the frank gratitude of a man at a pump in the desert. Adela, across the ferns, is almost smiling at her spoon. Even Mrs. Renshaw, far away at the table's head, sits for one visible moment with her wrists at rest, her fan still folded by the glasses, commanding nothing. Remember the table like this: cold sweetness, candle hiss, truce. Because the birds are coming, and with the birds comes the worst quarter of an hour of your evening. The game course enters like the month it belongs to. Pheasant and partridge, roasted plain, on croûtes of fried bread that have drunk the roasting juices, with bread sauce and thin gravy and watercress, and a burgundy poured dark as church glass. November food, gun food, the one course of this whole Frenchified navigation that comes straight off English stubble fields. The Colonel visibly reveres it. He is telling the Garnet lady, on his deaf side at slightly too great a volume, about partridges walked up over dogs in 1861. And it is also, by common cruel consent of every etiquette writer of the century, the course where wives are broken. Because game is bones, small bones, fine bones, bones in ambush under the brown, and the fingers that must not touch the frilled cutlet must never, the Green Book has italics here too, touch the bird. And so you are set the problem of undressing a partridge wing with a fork and a scrap of knife work, in candlelight, in silk, in silence, at a pace that must match the tables, while conducting conversation as though your plate contained no problem at all. Ladies of long practice simply refuse the game you had planned to. Taste everything, finish nothing has a codicil for courses like this. Touch nothing that can fight back. But the machine is ahead of you tonight. The sandy-haired footman is at your left with the great dish, and you are turning from Prynne with the tilt and the half-smile already loaded. And it is at this precise moment, wrong-footed between refusal and courtesy, that Mr. Renshaw's voice comes down the table like something rolling off a dray. "Ashworth, you're an iron man, or your masters are. What did you make of the tea? Understand what has just happened, at the speed you must understand it at the table. Mr. Renshaw does not talk business at dinner. The whole room knows the rule. The rule is why the room exists. But the tea is not business. The tea is conversation. It is the decade's own ghost story. The great bridge over the Tay at Dundee, nearly 2 miles of iron, the longest in the world when it opened, and on the last Sunday night of 1879, the 28th of December in a full gale, the high girders went into the black water and took the evening train with them, and every soul aboard, 75 by the memorials, and the Court of Inquiry sat all the next year and printed its findings for a shilling. Badly designed, badly built, badly maintained, ill-wrought iron. Every professional man in Britain has an opinion on it. It is, in 1888, entirely fair table talk. There's even fresh news to hang it on, for the replacement bridge opened only last summer, alongside the drowned stumps of the old one, and the country has not finished saying so yet. And it is also, at this table on this night, a bear pit dug exactly to Arthur's measurements, because Renshaw lost a roof once, to an architect who saved money on iron. Because Renshaw is weighing Arthur for a contract that is nothing but iron and spans, and because the question, "What did you make of the tea?" has no safe answer at all. Damn the dead engineer, and you are a young man dancing on a grave to please a buyer. Excuse him, and you've told Josiah Renshaw that when the wind rises, men of your profession close ranks over the water. The table has gone to that special pitch of quiet, which is 14 people not looking at anyone. And Arthur who rehearsed releve in the hall of his own house. Arthur whose fork you can see just perceptibly wanting to shake. Arthur sets his fork down, which is right, and waits one breath too long, which is dangerous, and says, "I think, sir, I think the inquiry said what needed saying about the iron. I'd sooner not add to it." It is honest, it is modest, and it is about to die in the air because it sounds, you can hear it sounding, like the closing of ranks. One beat more of this silence and the evening's whole slow-built structure will set around Arthur's answer like cement, and you know it. And there is nothing in the Green Book, nothing in Ellen's Catechism, nothing in the whole printed law of the table that licenses what you do next, which is to speak from your seat down a table's length into a men's question. Though there was one thing needed saying that the inquiry never said, Mr. Renshaw. Your voice comes out at dinner pitch, unhurried, as if this were Bayswater air. It fell on a Sunday night. The men who'd built it soundly would have been the same men standing in the wind on Monday, rebuilding, and nobody ever puts up a memorial to a bridge that stands. My husband measures twice. A half smile, the tilt. I can vouch for it. He measures the tea caddy. 1 second. 2. Then Renshaw laughs. Not the host laugh he's been issuing all evening, but the dray horse laugh, the dockyard laugh, a single loud, disgraceful bark of it. Whiskers up, glass raised half an inch in your direction. The tea caddy. By God, there's the audit that matters, Ashworth. And the table exhales into talk, everyone at once. The shipping man declaring that the new bridge is over-engineered and a good thing too. The colonel demanding the story be repeated into his good ear. Prynne at your right saying softly, delightedly into his burgundy case dismissed. And under the general noise for a quarter of a second, Arthur looks at you down the whole length of the linen, past the ferns, past the candles, past everything the table is designed to keep between you. And neither of you smiles, because smiling would be seen, and both of you understand each other completely. The circling woman in the carriage window, the same look exactly. We're in this absurd orbit together, and we do not crash tonight. You have got away with it. You know precisely how narrowly. A wife who speaks down the table is a wife who talks. You had one such sentence to spend in the entire evening, and you have spent it, and it happened. You realize with your heart still at sewing machine speed. To be legal tender. You turn back to your place, and there, at your left shoulder, is the crisis nobody else will ever know about. Because in the whole Taybridge minute, the game course has not paused. The dish is at your elbow, the serving fork and spoon are toward you. The table is being served, and your hands, abandoned by your attention, have already moved. And you look down to find that you, Meg Ashworth, star pupil of the Ironing Board Academy, are about to help yourself to roast pheasant with the fish fork. The used one. Retired at course 4, an inch out of its rank, and your fingers are closed on it and rising. It is nothing. It would photograph as nothing. It is also, at this table, on this night, with Prynne 11 inches from your wrist, the whole examination handed back at the last page. The sandy-haired footman does not speak. Footmen do not speak. but the dish at your left shoulder halts, an inch short of where it should halt. A machine developing for one impossible instant a soul, and you glance up, and his eyes come down to your hand and up again. Once, level as a spirit line. Nothing in his face moves at all. You set the fish fork down. You take up the right one. Outermost, always outermost. The rank has been telling you all evening, it never once lied to you. And you lift one small croute of partridge onto your plate as though this had been your unhurried intention since Shrewsbury, and the dish moves on, and the machine closes over the moment like water over a stone. 2 threads, that glove button. 2 threads, this whole shining evening. Everything that holds, holding by exactly that much. You do not eat the partridge, in the end. You were never going to eat the partridge. You sit with your heart slowing, your spine in the corset's keeping, the burgundy untouched and trembling very slightly with the pulse in the table itself. 40 candles, 14 lives, 8 courses down. And you understand fully in your body the thing you will try and fail to explain to Ellen at 1 o'clock in the morning, that nothing whatever has happened tonight, that a bridge fell 9 years ago, and a fork moved an inch, and that you are as tired as if you had swum a channel. 4 courses to go, the sweet ones, the kind ones. The worst, though you have no way of knowing it yet, is over. The entremets come in like a change of season. The word just means the between things, the dishes that fill the space after the roast and before the end, and in practice it means the table goes from brown to pale, cauliflower under its blistered gratin, breathing nutmeg, and then, on the second wave, the sweets, a Charlotte Russe, which is a crown of upright sponge fingers holding a trembling Bavarian cream, invented, so the menu writers like to claim, by the great Carême himself, the cook of kings, the man who dressed food the way architects dress stone, and beside it a maraschino jelly the colour of pale honey, turned out of its copper mould in a shape more elaborate than most parish churches, quivering with every footstep in the room, holding the candlelight inside itself like something swallowed and kept. And here is a small mercy the manual's actually printed, and you cling to it. With the sweets, a lady is finally allowed to be seen enjoying herself. Soup was silence, fish was law, game was ambush, but a spoonful of cream and a glass of sweet champagne at the 9th course sit inside the century's idea of what a woman is for, and so the table's whole female half becomes, briefly, visible. The garnet lady laughs at something and does not tidy it. Adela takes a whole slice of the charlotte and eats it, actually eats it, and her mother, far away behind the candles, does not glance at her once, which in the grammar of this family is applause. You take 2 spoonfuls of the jelly. It tastes of almonds and cold and money. Somewhere below your ribs the corset has entered its final phase, the one Ellen warned you about at the ironing board. The steady ache below the breastbone, the stitch along the right side, the sensation, not pain, nothing so honest as pain, of being held by a firm cold hand that has no intention of letting go before the carriage. 3 hours seated, the heat of 40 candles and a coal fire and gaslight in the hall beyond, all of it pooled now at shoulder height in a room whose windows will not be opened in November. You can see the evening's cost being paid all down the table if you know where to look. The doctor's wife easing her shoulders back 1/2 inch at a time. The shipping man's wife pressing her lips together on a yawn and converting it, professionally, into a smile at nobody. The men have loosened by exactly 1 degree. The women cannot loosen. There is nothing in silk and steel that knows how. You learn something in this stretch of the dinner, somewhere between the jelly and the anchovies. and it is worth setting down plainly, because it is the thing this whole evening has been teaching you an inch at a time. The torture of a 12-course dinner is not the food. It was never the food. The food is superb. The food is the best of everything in the richest city on earth. Some of the food you will remember on your deathbed. The torture is that the dinner is a clock you live inside for 3.5 hours, and every tick of it is a rule, and every rule is a witness, and you cannot leave. That's all. That's the whole engine. You cannot loosen anything. You cannot lean back. You cannot say what you think. You cannot eat when you are hungry or stop when you are full. Your hunger and your fullness were confiscated at the door with your cloak, and you cannot leave. Your grandmother stood at dinners like this until her ankles gave. You sit at them until your ribs do. The house is very warm and very beautiful, and there is not one person at this table, from the deaf old colonel to the girl in white, who's not in some quiet, upholstered way enduring it. And the whole art of the thing, the art you came in not having and will leave possessing, is to endure it as if enduring were a pleasure. The room decides. Ellen said that too, pinning the last fold of the blue silk. Not the menu, Mum, not the manners, not you. The room decides altogether how the evening felt. Feed the room, and it will feed you back. You didn't understand her this afternoon. You understand her now, because you can feel the room deciding. It is deciding that the evening has gone well. It is deciding, in the way a tide decides, around Renshaw's bark of laughter, still faintly warming the air like the smell of a snuffed candle, around the Colonel's partridges of 1861, around Adela's finished slice of Charlotte, around a young wife in blue silk who said the thing about the tea caddy. The talkers found the register hostesses pray toward. General, easy, nobody performing, the candles low, the jelly demolished, the fan at Mrs. Renshaw's place still lying folded. And you know now, having watched her all evening, that the fan is an instrument, that everything within reach of that calm grey woman is an instrument, and that when it finally moves, it will mean something. The savoury arrives. Croûte d'anchois, 1 hot mouthful each, anchovies on fried bread with a blister of cayenne butter. Course 10, the strangest small ritual in the whole English canon, the salt slap after the sweets that no French menu writer ever forgave us for. The theory is that it clears the palate for the port that the men will shortly be drinking. The truth, you suspect, watching the Colonel receive his croûte with open devotion, is that after 2 hours of France, the English simply cannot bear to end on a foreign note. 1 bite, sherry glass refilled a finger's width, done. Then the ices, course 11, vanilla and something rose-coloured, in little pleated paper cases, made possible by the ice that has been coming into London by the shipload and sitting all summer in straw-packed wells under the confectioner's floors. You take 1 spoonful of the vanilla, and it slides down through the heat of you like absolution. And then, with no signal you can detect, the cloth changes state. Napkins shift. The footmen advance in a body. And the table performs its last transformation of the night, dessert. Dessert in this century on this table does not mean pudding. Pudding is over. Dessert is older than the whole Russian style. It is the survivor, the last unconquered province of the old French service, and it means the cloth is cleared down to the polished wood or the slips, and the architecture finally descends. The pineapple, the black hothouse grapes, the crystallized apricots, the walnuts with their little silver crackers, the 4 decanters beginning their clockwise voyage. Little plates come, each with its doily and its finger glass of scented water. And here the green book issued the warning it considered grave enough for capital letters, because within living memory certain innocent souls, confronted with a small bowl of warm water at a grand table, drank it. You dip your fingertips only, a bare christening, and dry them on the napkin's edge, and you permit yourself, laws of their own, remember, 3 grapes, taken with the grape scissors, and 1 crystallized apricot, because you are 23 and there are limits to obedience. And it is here, over the walnuts, with the port standing at Mr. Renshaw's elbow, and the whole table gone loose and golden and nearly kind, that you finally see the fan move. Mrs. Renshaw does not announce. Announcing is for butlers. What she does, and you are watching for it, so you see the whole quiet mechanism work, is gather the table's women with her eyes, one by one. The shipping man's wife first by seniority. A glance, a held half-second, the faintest inclination. The doctor's wife, the garnet lady, Adela. You last, and when the grey eyes reach you, there is something in them that was not in the drawing-room inventory 3 hours ago. You could not name it under oath, but it is warmer than approval and quieter than a smile. And then she rises, fan in hand at last, and the ivory blades open 1 inch, no more, like a signature being signed, and every man at the table comes to his feet in a single rustling wave. Chairs eased back, napkins dropped, the colonel creaking upright like a drawbridge, because the ladies are withdrawing, and this is the one moment of the whole evening when all the standing is done for you. You rise into the corset, it receives you like a verdict. Gather the gloves from your lap, and there, small and stiff and gilt-edged beside your finger-glass, is the menu card. Your map. Consulted, clung to, tilted once across the ferns to a drowning girl. The manuals note, with a tolerance they extend to almost nothing else, that guests may take their menus away, and that ladies often do, pressed into albums, dated, kept. You take it. Nobody sees you take it, and it would not matter if they did. 6 inches of pasteboard, 14 lines of French, 1 evening of your one life. The procession out is the morning's in reverse, and nothing like it. No arms offered now, no ranked pairs, just the women, filing out behind the hostess through the double doors while the men remain standing until the last silk hem is through. As you pass, Mr. Renshaw, port already in hand, whiskers already relaxing into the masculine hour ahead, says, to you alone, at a volume calibrated as finely as anything his wife did with her eyes all night, Mrs. Ashworth, my table's the better for you. 7 words. You will carry them home like a lamp. Behind you, as the doors close on the dining room, you hear the men's voices drop half an octave altogether, the way men's voices do the instant they are alone, and the sandy-haired footman, holding the door, keeps his gaze at the regulation middle distance, except that at the very last it flickers down to you, 1/4 second, level as a spirit line, and this time there is the ghost of something at the corner of it that in a lesser servant would have grown up to be a smile. The fish fork, he knows. He will know it at his own supper at 2 a.m. in the servants' hall, where the whole evening will be replayed and marked like a regatta. You incline your head, one guest to the machine, one professional to another, her table, her law, his save, and you go up the stairs behind the candles into the withdrawing part of the night, where the last and gentlest examination is waiting for you beside a coffee tray. The drawing-room has been reset while you dined, fires rebuilt, lamps trimmed, coffee waiting, and the room that terrified you at 8 o'clock receives you at 11:20, like a different building. This is the secret hour of the Victorian dinner, the one the after-dinner jokes never bother with because there are no men in it to write them. The women alone, half an hour, maybe 40 minutes, while below them the port goes round and the cigars come out, and the talk turns to whatever men persuade themselves is franker than what their wives are saying upstairs. It is not franker. You would put the blue silk itself on that wager now. Because upstairs the corsets are still laced, but the examination is adjourned, and women who have spent 3.5 hours being flawless at strangers subside onto sofas with their coffee and become, cautiously, people. The doctor's wife eases off one shoe beneath her hem with the stealth of a poacher. You see it. She sees you see it. And the look you exchange holds more genuine society than the whole fish course. The shipping man's wife tells a story about a dinner in 1874 at which a hired footman fainted into the trifle, and tells it well. And the laughter in the room is finally the unribboned kind. The talk is of children and Christmas and the fog coming up the Bristol Channel. It is small and warm and requires nothing, and after the evening's long fencing it feels the way the Roman punch felt. Adela brings you your coffee herself, which is not a daughter's duty, and the tray is the footman's work, and she does it a shade too carefully, cup rattling once and sets it down and then simply stands there, close, half turned from the room, and says, at a pitch that would not carry to a cat, "You put your fork down," at the entrees, a breath. Nobody has ever. People watch one drown here, Mrs. Ashworth. Politely, they watch. Her eyes this near are her mother's, before whatever her mother learned had been learned. You put your fork down. Someone once showed me the trick of it, you say. I'm only passing it along the table. Was it dreadful, your first? She asks it the way the young ask, hungry, ashamed of the hunger. I'm at it now, you say. And watch her work out that you mean tonight, and watch the discovery do for her exactly what it did for you at 18, when a woman in a Shrewsbury assembly room admitted the same thing. Rearrange the whole map of who is drowning and who can swim. She laughs, quickly tidied but real, her first real one tonight, and says, "Then no one can ever tell." And you say, "No one can ever tell. That's the entire secret. There is no far shore, Miss Renshaw. There are only people swimming beautifully." And that is the moment the button goes. You feel it before you hear it, the tiny release at your left wrist, 2 threads ending their long evening. And the little kid-covered button drops, strikes the saucer's rim with a ping, absurdly loud in the soft room, leaps, and rolls away under the sofa table like something making its escape at last. Your glove gapes at the wrist, 18 hours of armour breached by a haberdasher's farthing. Adela's hand flies toward her mouth, and Mrs. Renshaw is there. She has crossed her drawing-room without appearing to cross it. You begin to see where Adela's carefulness and the footman's silence and the whole noiseless machine of this house actually come from. They come from her. And she surveys the gaping glove and the crimson beginning at your throat and her daughter's suspended horror in one grey, unhurried glance. At my own first dinner, she says, at that same cat's whisper pitch, the pearls went, the string, at the soup. Into the soup, Mrs. Ashworth. In 1857, at my husband's first patron's table, when everything we had was rented, including, I have always suspected, the pearls. She turns the fan over once in her fingers, ivory catching the firelight, and for a quarter of a second the composed grey hostess is 22, and newly married to a measuring boy with one good coat, and you understand something that reorganises the entire evening behind you, the way the falling button reorganized the glove. She was you. This calm and grey and finished woman was precisely you. 31 years and one long climb ago, and she has known it since the moment her butler said your name. Adela, she says, my workbox, the small needle case, and the grey thread. Grey will vanish against that kid where white would boast about itself. And to you, while her daughter goes, sit by me. It wants 2 minutes, and I sew better than my maid, though we're both of us swore never to say so. And that is how you come to spend the last best quarter of an hour of the withdrawing hour on the small sofa by the fire, your bare wrist resting on Mrs. Renshaw's silk knee like a patient's, while she recovers the fugitive button from beneath her own sofa table without a flicker of ceremony, threads a needle at a single try in firelight, and sews it back. Small, firm, granite grey stitches, the stitches of a woman who mended for herself once and misses it, and talks to you, low and even, of nothing at all, of Shropshire, where it turns out her sister keeps a garden, of the fog, of how a house this size eats coal, and then, with her eyes on the needle in exactly the voice she used for the fog, I am at home on Thursdays, Mrs. Ashworth. First and third Thursdays, 4 o'clock. The kettle takes no account of who has a warehouse and who wants one. The thread is bitten clean, softly, an old habit older than the house. Come on the first Thursday of December. Come every first Thursday. My table is a deal smaller at 4 o'clock, and the forks don't matter. And I find they are the only afternoons all month at which nothing whatever is being decided. The grey eyes come up from the mended glove, and there it is again, the thing warmer than approval, which is of course why everything is. An at-home day, 4 o'clock on Thursdays, it is 13 words and a cup of tea, and you know exactly what it is, because the Green Book, for all its forks, taught you the one great law under all the others. The men decide the contracts and the wives decide the men. Josiah Renshaw will choose his architect on the drawings, on the tenders, on the iron, mostly, and on a December Thursday his wife will pour tea and mention, in the voice she uses for fog, that young Mrs. Ashworth is a person one is glad to know. It will not win Arthur the warehouse. Nothing his wife does can win him the warehouse. It can only make him the sort of man whose house one is easy about, which, at the margin where such decisions actually live, and they all live at the margin. You've watched this table all night. Everything lives at the margin, is worth more than the drawings. The men come up at midnight. You hear them on the stairs first, that half-octave restored to public pitch, and then they are in the room smelling faintly of port and smoke, redistributing themselves among the sofas, and Arthur finds his way to the mantel near you, looking like a man walking off a ship after weather. But a ship that has come in. Whatever passed over the port has left him steady. Adela is sent to the piano, where she plays 2 songs of Sullivan's better than anyone will tell her, and the room settles into that last shallow, golden water of an evening, the water where nothing more can happen, where the fire does the talking, and even the Colonel's good ear is half off duty. You stand at the tall window for a moment, a little apart with the last of a cup of tea. Below you the square lies in its ring of gas lamps, each one wearing a halo of fog the size of a hayrick. The garden in the middle a lake of dark. From up here, from the first floor of number 11, you can see the whole geography of your evening at once. The curb where the carriage circled, 3 slow laps of terror, 6 hours and 1 lifetime ago. The area railings all round the square, and behind this house's own railings, directly below you, the basement light still burning, still at midnight, where the copper pans are going back on their hooks and the last of the £60 is being scoured off the last dish by a girl who was up at 6, and beyond the square, past the dark garden, the low orange smoulder of the whole city, mile after mile of it under the fog, 10,000 other lit windows, and behind every one of them some version of tonight. Some table where it went well, some table where the fork shook, some table being cleared at midnight by tired hands, while up in the warm rooms above, the room decided, London at dinner. From above it looks exactly like London at anything else. Lights, fog, and everyone circling their own square waiting for the correct minute to knock. Carriage for Mr. and Mrs. Ashworth. The butler says it from the doorway at 12:30, third of the evening's departures, and the last quarter hour is a slow, warm unwinding of everything 8 o'clock wound tight. The shipping pair go first, then the doctors. Farewells at a Victorian midnight are their own small liturgy. Everyone standing, everyone briefly kind. Colonel Fane takes your hand in both of his, banister and drawbridge together, and says, at a volume he honestly believes is confidential, "Best dinner this table's given me in 5 years, and I include the mutton in the reckoning, ma'am, but only just." Mr. Prynne bows over your hand with the fencer's smile at rest and says, "First and third Thursdays, I hear. Then we shall be able to continue the case, Mrs. Ashworth. I never abandon a witness who improves under cross," which is how you learn that he calls at 4 o'clock too, and that the small sofa by Mrs. Renshaw's fire is where this city actually happens. Adela squeezes your fingers and does not manage anything else and does not need to. And at the door of the room, Mr. Renshaw shakes Arthur's hand a fraction longer than hellos are shaken, and says only, "Monday, Ashworth. Bring the Salford sections, I've a mind to walk through them slowly," and turns away at once to the Colonel, because he is not a man who watches his sentences land. Monday. The sections. Slowly. Arthur's face does not change at all, which is how you know. Down the stairs, the hall again, black and white marble, the mirror, the machine executing its final movement in reverse. Your cloak descends onto your shoulders from behind, from hands you never see, except that this time you turn, against all regulation, and it is of course the sandy-haired footman, and you say, "Thank you, William," on the pure gamble that first footmen in houses like this are called William, because they're always called William, the name goes with a place like the livery, and something at the corner of his regulation blank eyes finally, after 5 hours, becomes what it has been trying not to be all night. "Good night, madam," says William, opening the great door onto the cold. The fog takes you like a second cloak. Behind you the door of number 11 closes on its warmth, and its candles and its £60, and the sound it makes is soft and enormous, and done. The carriage is cold as a cellar, and it is wonderful. You had not known, until the door shuts the two of you into the dark leather box, how much of tonight you have spent being warm against your will. The horse leans into the fog at a walk. Nobody trots through a London November particular, not with the lamps drowned to smudges, and the square begins to slide away behind you, one gauzy gas halo at a time. For 3 streets, neither of you says anything at all. That is its own kind of speech, after 10 months of marriage. Arthur sits with his hat on his knees and his head back against the buttoned leather, and you sit upright because you have no choice. The corset will be making your decisions for another half hour yet, and the two of you breathe, and the wheels turn softly in the wet, and the evening drains out of you both like heat out of a stone. Then Arthur starts to laugh, quietly, helplessly, from somewhere under his ribs, the laugh of a man walking away from something enormous. The tea caddy, he manages. Meg, the tea caddy. 8 months of drawings, sections, tenders, wrought iron schedules, and the thing that lands is that I measure the tea caddy, which I did once in February, because the housemaid was, and he cannot finish, and you're laughing too now, painfully in instalments, the corset issuing your own laughter back to you an inch at a time, and the driver's shape sways dimly through the front glass and does not turn, because drivers at 1 a.m. have heard everything the gentry ever laughed at and long ago stopped wondering. When it subsides, he tells you about the port. Not the whole of it. The whole of it belongs to the room it happened in. That is the men's version of the law you've been living all evening. But enough. That Renshaw talked shipping with the shipping man and law with Prynne, and never once, all hour, mentioned Selford, until the very last, standing with the candles guttering, he said the thing about Monday. That the Colonel had held Arthur's sleeve in the hall for a moment on the way up and rumbled, "Steady young pair, you two." I said as much to my niece. Which is, you both agree, watching the fog roll past probably worth more than the tenders. And then he says, quieter, in the voice he uses when he has been doing sums, but different sums. He asked me one thing over the port. Only one. Straight at me. He asked how long we'd been married, and when I said 10 months he nodded, the way he nods at ironwork, Meg, exactly that nod, and said, "Early days, that's when the measuring matters, and past the decanter, and that was all. The wheels in the wet, the gas smudges swimming by. And Mrs. Renshaw asked me to her Thursdays, you say, 1st and 3rd, 4 o'clock. Arthur is silent for a moment. He is quick. Your husband, under the nerves. It is why you married him. He can read a section through a wall. That's the contract, isn't it? He says at last slowly, looking at you across the dark carriage. Or as near as we'll get till Christmas. The rest is drawings. The rest was always drawings, you say. Tonight was the other tender. The one nobody prints. And he reaches across the cold leather and takes your gloved hand. The left one, the mended one, though he doesn't know that yet. The grey stitches invisible against the kid exactly as their maker promised. And holds it the rest of the way home, and neither of you performs anything for anybody. All the way up Westbourne Way through the fog, past the shuttered ironmongers, past your own church tower striking one, to the narrow tall house on the quiet street where the area railing wants paint and the fanlight is lit because Ellen, 3 and 6 worth £30, has waited up. She takes one look at you in the hall, at the whole shape of the evening on the two of you, and asks nothing in words. There's the fire lit up in your room, ma'am, is all, and the kettle's this minute boiled. Arthur goes to his study first. He will be 20 minutes. He'll be looking at the Salford sections tonight. Of course he will, gently, the way one looks in on a sleeping child before an examination. And you climb the stairs behind Ellen's candle. 1 flight. 2. Your hand riding the rail properly this time, every tread of your own house arriving through your slippers like a word in a language you were born to. And then the unlacing. The gown first, hook by hook, eye by eye. The blue silk sinking to the floor around you in a rustling ring like water let out of something, and Ellen gathers it over her arm the way a nurse gathers a patient. Then her fingers find the knot at the small of your back. The knot she tied at 7 o'clock in another age of the world, and work it and take the laces and begin, eyelet by eyelet, from the bottom to give you back. It does not come all at once. That is the thing nobody tells you about the end of such an evening, and the thing your body will remember when the menu and the mutton and even the tea caddy have gone dim. 6 hours of 19 inches do not undo in a breath. The lace is open, and the steel bones lift away from your ribs one by one, the same fingers that closed at 7 now uncurling, and the first full breath goes down into places that have been standing empty since daylight, and it aches, actually aches, the way feet ache when boots come off after a march. There in the long glass in the firelight is the evening's whole ledger, printed on you, the red seams down your sides where the bones lay, the deep line under your breastbone where the busk pressed, the marks of the examination written in your own skin in a script that will take until morning to fade. You stand in your shift breathing, down to the floor of yourself, again, sips no longer, whole cold pints of your own bedroom air, and Ellen sets the corset over the chair back where it sits upright on its own, holding your shape without you, a small steel ghost of the woman who said the thing about the bridge. "Well, ma'am," says Ellen, who's watched 100 of these evenings from the doorway side of the door, and is now, at 1 in the morning, on this side with you. "Taste everything," you say, to her, to the glass, to the ghost on the chair. Finish nothing, and never be the first to put your fork down or the last to pick it up. A breath, all the way down. It held, Ellen, all of it, every stitch of it held. "I did pray about the button," Ellen says gravely, and then the two of you are laughing in the firelight the way you could not laugh all evening, unlaced, unwitnessed, at nothing, at everything, at 2 threads, and it is the best thing that has happened since the Roman punch. You show her the mend, and tell her who stitches, and watch her go still. She takes your wrist and turns the glove. You have carried it upstairs, you could not have said what, to the light, and reads the small granite grey work the way Arthur reads sections. "That's a still room hand, that is," she says at last, softly, with the strangest note in her voice, respect meeting recognition somewhere far back. "That's a hand that mended for her living once, or I'm a duchess." Well then, ma'am." And she asks nothing further, and you tell her nothing further, because some accounts balance best unspoken. But as she folds the glove away, you both know that a message has passed tonight between 2 women who mended for their living, straight through you, straight through the silk and the 60 pounds, hand to hand, the way the fork's message passed to Adela across the ferns. Then Ellen goes down and brings up the tray, and here is the last scene of the strange torture of eating a 12-course dinner, the scene every wife of your generation knew, and none of their menus record. On the tray, the teapot, 2 slices of bread and butter, cut thick, the way it is never cut in Bayswater, because you are hungry. You have sat at one of the great tables of the richest city on earth. You have been offered by your own count on the gilt-edged card now propped against your bedroom clock some 4 dozen separate preparations of the best food money and empire could assemble. Oysters and consomme and turbot and sweetbreads, saddle and punch and partridge and charlotte, jelly, anchovy, ices, pineapple, and of all that abundance you have actually eaten in 6 hours, perhaps as much as would cover a saucer. Taste everything, finish nothing. The system worked. The system worked exactly as designed, and the design was never eating. The design was passing. And so, at 1:30 in the morning, in your shift, unlaced, cross-legged before your own small fire like a girl of 10 in Shropshire, Mrs. Arthur Ashworth, success of the season at number 11, eats bread and butter and drinks kitchen tea, and nothing at the Renshaw's table, nothing under the 40 candles, none of the 4 dozen preparations tasted half so much like food. Your grandmother used to say it, and you thought it was a servant's joke, and it was a servant's census. The quality go home hungry, child. We ate the dinner, they ate each other, the fire ticks. The fog presses its grey cheek to the window. Somewhere below, Arthur's study door closes at last, and his tread comes up the stairs, unhurried now, safe now. On the mantel, against the clock, the menu card catches the last of the firelight. Dîner du 22nd November 1888. You will keep it. You know already, in the way one sometimes knows the future of an object, exactly how you will keep it. Pressed into the album with the wedding cards, dated in your own hand in the corner and below the date, because someone in a family should always write down the truth where only the family will find it. One line. My first great dinner, 12 courses, ate almost none of them, a very great success. And 40 years from now, some winter evening, a girl not yet born, a daughter, a niece, some young woman with her own first card propped on her own mantle and her own tightrope ahead of her, will find it there and ask, and you will tell her about the forks, outside in, always outside in, and about the fish knife that was loaded, and about a footman's quarter-second and a hostess's grey thread, and she will not believe that any of it mattered, because by then, God willing, it won't. But you will not tell her it was misery, because that will be a lie. It was a battle, and you won it, and there's no use pretending the winning wasn't sweet. You finish the bread and butter to the last crumb, the way no course was finished all night. Then you bank the fire and blow out the candle, and the long day of the 22nd of November, 1888, laced at 7, mended at 11, unlaced at 1, finally, fully, ends. Or rather it ends the way such days actually end, which is slowly in layers, like the fog settling into the square. You lie in the dark of your own bed, in the narrow tall house on the quiet street, with Arthur's breathing already gone long, and even beside you, and the evening comes back one sensation at a time, unhooking itself from you the way Ellen unhooked the gown, the weight of the cloak leaving your shoulders in the marble hall, the cold of Arthur's fingers through 2 gloves at the foot of the steps, the amber of the consommé and the hour of some kitchen maid's afternoon lying dissolved in it, the little paper frill on the cutlet bone, the frost on the punch glass, the pheasant you never ate, the ping of a button against a saucer, the loudest sound of the entire night, grey thread drawn through kid by firelight, by a hostess's own hand, and the sounds go one by one as sleep begins its own service à la Russe, carrying each course of the day away from you in order, silently, at your left shoulder, never to be seen again. The hooves in the fog go first, then the bells of the half-hours and the shiver of the doorbell on its wire, then the drawing-room voices, the tidied laughter, Adela's 2 songs of Sullivan's, then the great warm machine hum of the dinner itself, the click of oyster shells, the snowslide of plates, William's dish halting 1 inch short of ruin, all of it folding away into the dark like linen into a press. You are warm enough. You are fed enough. Bread and butter is enough. It was always enough. It was the only thing all night that asked nothing back. You're safe enough here, under your own roof that costs £85 a year of a £320 tightrope, beside a man who measures twice, in a house where the fires are small and nobody's examining anyone, warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. On the last night of her life, no woman ever asked for more than that. The manuals never printed it, but it is the whole of the law. And as you go down towards sleep, the strangest, gentlest thing happens to the evening behind you. It stops being an ordeal and starts being a possession. Something you own now. 19 inches, 12 courses, 3.5 hours. You carried all of it. And the carrying is in you now, the way the Colonel's 40 years of menus are in him, the way the still room is in Ellen's hands, the way 1857 and the pearls are in Mrs. Renshaw's grey calm. Nobody can take a survived evening away from you. It goes into the marrow with all the others, and it waits there, and years from now at some other table, watching some other young wife read her menu card twice through in terror, you will lay your fork down across a barely touched plate, and she will see it, and your whole hard-won evening will cross the ferns to her in 1/4 of a second, free of charge. That is how it was actually handed on, not the manuals. The manuals were only ever the sheet music. The women were the instrument. Sleep now. The house ticks and settles around you, beam by beam, the way old houses count themselves to sleep. The fire sinks behind its guard. One small collapse of coals, then quiet. Down in the kitchen the range is banked, the cook general long abed. 3 streets west, in a grander basement, the last copper pan goes up on its hook at last, and a scullery girl climbs to her attic through a sleeping house, carrying her candle and her aching wrists, and sleeps, God knows, the moment the pillow touches her. Across the dark city the great dinner table stands stripped and bare in 10,000 dining rooms, silver counted back into bays, cloths in the press, chairs against the walls. Every battlefield made a bare polished field again by hands nobody thanked by name. And in an album not yet bought, a menu card not yet yellow waits on a mantel for the morning. And everything, everywhere, in the whole fog-wrapped city, has been endured and cleared and put away. Centuries will pass. The house at number 11 will change beyond recognising. The great stucco cliffs of Bayswater will be carved into flats. The drawing room where a button rolled becoming somebody's whole home. The dining room 16 feet of mahogany sawn up or sold, or standing in a country auction room with a lot number where the Epern stood. The basement kitchen will become a garden flat with a bright door, and the people who live there will never once hear, under their own floor, the 7 o'clock scramble, the now, the sauce that must not break. Gas will give way to electricity, and the fog itself, the actual fog, the November particular, will be legislated out of the sky, and the square's gas halos will survive only in paintings and in stories like this one. The corset will go. The whalebone and the steel and the 19 inches will loosen, decade by decade, into memory, into museum glass, into fancy dress, until the very idea of it, of lacing a living woman to the shape of a vase, and then setting 12 courses in front of her, will be told as a horror story, which it partly was by people who will never know the other part, the armour of it, the ceremony, the strange pride of carrying it well. The fish knives will fill the junk shops of the whole world, monogrammed, scrolled, orphaned, 10 a shilling and then 10 a pound. And dealers will tell buyers the old story, that the grand families scorned them, that they were the badge of new money, and the buyers will smile and take them home and eat fish with them at kitchen tables gloriously, with their elbows anywhere they like, and the 12-course dinner itself will follow the fog. Wars will come that no menu survives. Kitchens will empty of their armies. The cook, the kitchen maid, the scullery girl, William and his matched inches, the whole silent machine will walk out through the area door into other work and never come back. The dinners will shrink. 8 courses, 5, 3, until a dinner party means 8 friends, 1 cook who is also the hostess, and food on the table where everyone can see it, which is to say, until the whole triumphant century of service à la Russe folds up and quietly returns to something your grandmother's grandmother would recognise. But people will still dress carefully for tables where they hope to be found acceptable. Still stand outside doors, hearts going like sewing machines waiting for the correct minute to knock. Still study the little maps of unfamiliar rooms, the seating plan, the place card, the fork they don't recognise, and steer by whatever one rule some kind soul once sewed into their hem. Still watch across every table on earth for the guest who is drowning and lay a fork down where she can see it. Still say the wrong thing and survive it, and drop the button and find, more often than the manuals ever promised, that the person at the head of the table was once exactly where they are sitting now. Some things don't change. The table doesn't change. Only the silver does. So let it come now, your own withdrawal from your own long day. The hostess of sleep has caught your eye. You may rise. All the stand-in will be done for you. Let the room grow dim the way the Renshaw's dining room grew dim. 1 candle at a time, nobody hurrying. Let the voices around your evening drop away behind closing doors, half an octave, then whole streets away, then gone. Let the corset of the day, whatever laced you tight since morning, whatever held your ribs and made your breathing shallow, the hours, the lists, the watching eyes, the examinations that were running whether you consented or not, let it be unlaced now, eyelet by eyelet from the bottom, by hands that know the knot. It does not come all at once. It never comes all at once. Breathe anyway, down into the places that stood empty all day. Again, again. Taste everything this day gave you. Finish nothing. You're not required to finish anything tonight. The plates will be taken from your left silently, whether you're done with them or not, and that is not a loss. That is the service. That is how the long meal of any day is meant to end. Tomorrow there will be Monday, and the sections and the slow walk through under a patron's eye. Tomorrow there will be a first Thursday coming, and a kettle that takes no account of who wants what. Tomorrow the whole examination begins again somewhere, for someone at some door, and some of it will even matter. But that's tomorrow. Right now there is only this: a banked fire, a mended glove, a menu card against a clock, and a woman breathing all the way down for the first time since 7, in a dark house in a sleeping city, in a year that has already let her go. You're warm enough, you're fed enough, you're safe enough. That's more than the table ever promised anyone. That's enough. Let sleep take you the way the footman took the plates, from the left, without a sound, so smoothly you never once catch the hand at work. Let the last course go. You do not have to signal. The eyes of the room have already been caught. Everything from here is done for you. Let the silver be counted back into its dark baize drawers. Let the cloth be folded into the press. Let the candles go out down the long table one by one, the way lights go out down a street, the way houses go dark across a city, the way the whole vast glittering dinner of the day is cleared and cleared and cleared, until there is only the bare polished wood, and the quiet, and the fog pressing its grey cheek to the glass, keeping its own counsel, wrapping the square, and the house, and the story, and you. The bells will strike the small hours over the rooftops, but you won't hear them. You've earned this rest. At somebody's table in some laced and difficult hour of your... You earned it, and no one can take the survived evening away from you. So take it. Dream, if you dream at all, of a long white table where every fork is the right one, where no one is watching, where the kind courses come forever and no one is ever required to finish, and where, when you look up, everyone at the table is swimming beautifully, and so are you. Good night.